Hello, welcome back to my channel for part 3 of the Beast of Gévaudan. Finally, we're at the watercolour stage. I had a lot of footage for this, so I've had to be a little more brutal with the editing compared to my last two videos to try and fit it approximately as long as the other videos. I didn't want it to go on for, what it said originally was about 40 minutes sped up, so I've had to edit it a little bit. So I'm using my watercolours, which are Schminke Horadam watercolour, and I'll also be using a little more of a sepia ink in times, and I will also be using the sepia pit pens again, just to bring out the beast and the lady a little bit later on in the video. Yeah, coming up we will have a little section where it skips ahead. That wasn't brutal editing, that was the fact that I must have run out of space on my memory card or changed the memory card and not press record. So there is a little section. It's just the a flat wash over the beast itself, but I go over the beast about 50 times, so missing one isn't so bad, I suppose, but schoolboy error. Hopefully I won't do that again. I've tried to use colours that I think would be representative of that time period. You'll see a lot of pinks and turquoisey blues and things like that, particularly in French clothing. First kind of wash on the beast itself, as I said in the first video, is described as being a reddish colour, so much as the temptation was to give it wolf colours, the kind of greys and creams and whites and colours like that, I've tried to stick to the description. As you see, we've skipped ahead now to that point where I was saying where I lost some footage, but the beast has had a single flat wash all over him, a mixture of I think it's burnt sienna and English Venetian red, and maybe a bit of transparent sienna in there as well, to give it that reddish hue. It's a colour I've really struggled with because I didn't want him to look like, like some fantasy hellhound bright red. But so yeah, you'll see me try and tackle those colours over the beast as I go on. I'll be adding the red, and then I'll think, oh, that's too red, and I'll start to add some burnt umber into it. Then I'll also add a little bit of quinacridone gold, very light wash of that, just to add some yellowness back into it and try and take that reddishness away from it. The benefits of doing an underpainting with the ink, or with watercolour itself, but ink I find better because it's more staining, is that you have that contrast already established, you have the lighting already established, and it makes it easier. I painted digitally for about 10 years. I always used to paint in watercolour and acrylic years and years ago, and then I went to digital because that's the way everything was going and people wanted digital artwork. But then I think 2 years ago I decided that I kind of I felt like I'd lost the fun in creating a painting. I missed the process of painting and everything that came with it, and also I felt a little bit like the challenge wasn't there. No mistakes couldn't be rectified digitally. There was no fear there, but when you do paint, you have to be aware of that fear, and you can use it to challenge yourself. And I find a much greater sense of satisfaction from an actual physical painting over a digital painting. Not that there's anything wrong with digital painting. That 10 years I really enjoyed, but just the last year or so, I just felt like I was missing something, and I was always trying to replicate real paint digitally, and I thought, well, why don't I just go back to normal paint? I do apologise if sometimes I'm painting off camera. It happens mostly when I turn the canvas like this into portrait, and the paintings are quite big, and the camera is as high as it can be, and unfortunately I can't get it any wider than that. So sometimes I will go off paint off screen, particularly when I'm right at the edges and I'm doing a horizontal line like the trees or around the border, so you'll have to excuse that. That's another thing I didn't say when I read the original description of a creature, the beast, in the first video, was that it was to have a black stripe down its back. So that's what that is, if any of you are wondering, like a black stripe of fur. If anything, I was listing the animals that people supposed it may have been, which included wolves. There was a lot of theories at the time, but it was a wolf-dog hybrid, some very large hound bred with some wolves. The lion theory was there, and hyena. But in all of nature, the animal which sprang to mind when I read the description of the Beast of Gévaudan was a maned wolf from, I think it's from South America. A very tall, long-legged wolf, reddish colour, black stripe on its back. Very, very similar. The only thing was that the maned wolf feeds on small animals, small mammals, rodents in particular, and it uses its long legs to hunt in the long grasses in South America. So it makes very little sense that it would run around eating people. But there you go, description wise, very similar. Okay, I'm taking the masking tape off the inner border now, and I'm going to just wash over it with some yellow ochre and some burnt umber, and just bring more of a uniformity to the whole image. I'll do this again towards the end. it's my sort of aging process. I don't want the white paper to be white paper anymore. I want it to look like it's been around for years. So I will do that more towards the end. I'm trying to desaturate that red a little bit now, that reddish colour, add a little bit more warmth to it, make it a little more browny red, hopefully a more kind of natural colour. But all the time when I'm doing this sort of style, this vintage style, I think about how the artists at the time would interpret the animal, person, creature, whatever it is, and try not to let myself be influenced by work of modern times, of the day. Try and think like an old artist from that era. I'm always pushing and pulling elements of a painting, pushing things back, pulling things forward. When I feel like the contrast is wrong, I will bring things out. I want some separation between the trees. I want them to look like there's some distance between them, some atmosphere between them. So that's what I was doing there. And now I've gone back in with the pen, quite dramatically, really. I really do thicken up the line quite considerably on the beast and on the lady in particular. But I just wanted that. I wanted that contrast. I felt like it was getting lost a little bit, and I wanted that contrast. And also, it is a big image, so from a distance, either hung on a wall or as a reduced in size print, that things could get lost. So I thought, right, well, I'll thicken that line and I'll add more weight to it, and I was happy with it in the end. I'm going to start adding a little bit of texture to the trees as well in a minute. Just adding some work with the pen, but also with some sepia ink and some paint. Just adding little knots and texture to the bark and things like that. I think it really improves them. But I'm continuously going at it. It's always hard to know when a picture is done. I think for me, I paint until suddenly it just feels like I don't want to do any more. And when I reach that phase, I normally stop. Obviously, I'll finish what I'm doing. I wouldn't just stop halfway through doing something, but I will finish that bit. And sometimes it's good to step away from it. You know, put your paintbrush down, put your pen down, come back the next day and see. I'm just going to start adding some blue into the background now, in between the trees, just to give it that kind of frosty, cold atmosphere going back into the forest behind them. It's just a little bit of ultramarine that's quite diluted, but I just add it here and there. I think it gives it that frosty atmosphere. think by this point I'm kind of happy with the overall image now, and now I'm going into the aging process, as I call it, where you can just see in the corner my palette has all kinds of ochres and umbers and some Payne's grey, and I'll just slap it on, you know, quite randomly and give it that look, you know, like something's been varnished years ago. It's kind of got that grime, that not a crisp, clean white. Now I'm going in with some white ink, and I'm just adding a few little highlights in places. I always knew at the end of this picture that I wanted to add falling snow to set the scene, and so yeah, the white ink is, I really like. I prefer it from using white gouache, which I always used to do, but you have to build it up. But because of that, you can lay down snowflakes and you can build up certain ones. You don't have to do all of them, and it gives it some distance between them as well. So I hope everyone's enjoyed this. If you've watched it and if you have managed to watch all 3 videos, then well done you, because yeah, it's like watching paint dry, isn't it? Please, if you like the video, then feel free to leave a like, subscribe, click that notification bell. And also check the description below for a link to my Etsy store, where I have my prints available, including this one, available now worldwide. And yeah, I will be back again with a new picture. Okay, so take care. Thanks for watching.